After Mario made his name on the NES, fans looked forward to see how he would transition to Nintendo's next home console, the Super Nintendo. I talked about it briefly in my review of Super Castlevania 4, but the late 80s and early 90s was the time where the jump to the 16-bit era was a massive deal. We already saw how a good 16-bit game can look and play with the rival consoles Sega Genesis and the TurboGrafx-16. Don't worry, I haven't forgotten about you, my sweet prince. Gamers waited in anticipation to see how Nintendo would introduce themselves to the new generation of consoles, and that would be done with the subject of today's video, Super Mario World. You know, in hindsight, the Super Nintendo's launch library has an argument to be one of the greatest of all time. There's only 5 games total, but the quality is really solid. F-Zero was a great racing game, and one I've already covered on this channel if you're curious on my full thoughts of it. Pilot Wings and SimCity were pretty good flying and sim games. Gradius 3 is an excellent shoot 'em up and one that I go back to very often. Finally, of course, is Mario World, which has been lauded as a classic since the day it came out. Like the Mario Bros. 3 review, I'm not spoiling anything here when I say this is one of the best games in the Mario franchise. 2D, 3D, doesn't matter. This game is great. Will this make for a boring video? Maybe so, but any excuse to talk about this game is good enough for me, so let's stop waiting around and let's get started. The development of Super Mario World began shortly after the release of Super Mario Bros. 3 in 1988. We see a lot of familiar faces once again from previous Mario games like Miyamoto, Tezuka, Koji Kondo, and so on and so forth. The game's development was actually a bit more of an ordeal than past games. I'm not saying it was fully in development hell necessarily, but it wasn't as smooth sailing as other games, relatively speaking of course. There were some issues with making another Mario game feel more unique and not just the same thing over and over and over again, something I'm sure Nintendo will learn from in the future. In fact, one of the first experiments the game did was port over Mario 3 to the Super Nintendo, and this was when it was realized that a new piece of hardware needed an aesthetically different feeling Mario game. When the game was first revealed at the Shoshinkai event in July of 1989, it wasn't received super positively either. Even with the improved graphics, many attendees viewed it as too similar to previous Mario games. The game ended up being delayed shortly after the event, no thanks in part to the chip shortage that was occurring at that time, and during this time, that was where some design aspects were reworked to improve them. At the next Shoshinkai event, God, you don't know how hard that was to say, in August of 1990, the game had a much better reception. The same year in November, the Super Famicom would launch in Japan with Super Mario World on store shelves. These would release in America a little later in August of 1991. You probably wouldn't be able to tell that this was a release window game from the Super Nintendo if you just looked at it at first glance. For something released so soon in a console's lifecycle, it looks pretty damn good. The added power of the Super Nintendo makes every aspect of the game's art style so much cleaner and more vibrant. The returning enemies all look pretty solid, and the new faces we see all have this unique feel the development team was looking for. The world itself is a lot more lively as well. Just like in Mario 3, we explore an overworld as we play the game. However, unlike Mario 3, where we travel through differently themed areas, Mario is traversing through one island, Dinosaur Land. Well, I guess it's technically multiple islands, but you know what I mean. While we aren't going to see specifically themed ice or cloud areas necessarily, each section of Dinosaur Land does feel different. Donut Plains and Vanilla Dome are your basic grass and underground areas, the Cookie and Cheese Bridge are your big platform challenges in the clouds, the Forest of Illusion tests your secret finding abilities along with your patience, Chocolate Island has hot chocolate as lava. Wow, there's a lot of food-related areas in this game. Makes me kind of hungry just thinking about it. I think these types of areas make Dinosaur Land actually feel like a different land that's just adjacent to the Mushroom Kingdom. Speaking of which, how come we aren't in the Mushroom Kingdom for this game? Well, I guess Mario and Co. were tired of Peach getting kidnapped in the Mushroom Kingdom, so they decided to take a vacation to Dinosaur Land. Unfortunately for them, Bowser still found a way to steal Peach from under Mario's mustache. This time though, Bowser hasn't just kidnapped Peach, he has also kidnapped some of the natives of this island, the Yoshis. Now Mario has to save the people of Dinosaur Land and the princess alongside them. Mario isn't alone this time though. Of course, Luigi is here, but he's once again relegated to just player 2 duties. You know, there is actually one neat thing about Luigi here in this game. In the original release of Mario World, his sprite was just a basic color change of Mario's, like in other games. However, in the Mario All-Stars re-release, they changed his sprite to make it a little bit different. For reference, I did play the Mario All-Stars re-release for this video. I wanted to see if there were any differences besides the sprite, and from what I could tell, there wasn't really anything. If there is actually something, please let me know. Anyway, the actual partner Mario has for this adventure is Yoshi. Once you find him, you're able to ride him like a horse, take an extra hit, and also eat close to anything in this game, enemy or otherwise. If you really wanted to, you can also jump off him to get some extra height, although I only really use this if I need to save myself from a bad jump, or there's one secret exit where it's almost necessary to do so. It helps, but I'm sure Yoshi remembers all the times I sacrificed him. I'm sorry, buddy, it just had to be done. My favorite Yoshi ability is how he handles the Koopa shells though. He can hold shells in his mouth for a short time, and the shell's color gives him different abilities. Green shells get spit out like normal, red shells let Yoshi spit fire, yellow shells give him a ground stomp, and blue shells let him fly. Plus, in the special worlds, there are other appropriately colored Yoshis that can take advantage of these abilities no matter what shell you're holding. I love finding a blue Yoshi and flying over stages that give me a hard time, it's awesome. And Yoshi in general is just awesome. He's a great addition to the series and really expands the platforming formula that Mario's already made popular. There's a reason he's in just about every spin-off game to this date. Funnily enough, he actually was planned to be introduced in the series as early as Mario 1. Yeah, Miyamoto had designed him to be in the original Super Mario Bros., but of course due to the limitations of the NES, that couldn't be done. Another Yoshi fun fact is that his design was inspired by the dragon you play as in Devil World. Us Americans might recognize this game as the assist trophy you see in Super Smash Bros., but it wasn't released here in the States due to the religious imagery. Thank you, Nintendo censorship. But yeah, this little dragon you play as is what partially inspired Yoshi. Cool, right? The core elements of 2D Mario are still here and are as good as ever, but there are some changes. I mentioned it briefly in the Mario Land video, but Mario has a second type of jump here. It's this spin jump that can break certain blocks when landing on them. It's pretty neat, but I don't really use this a ton unless it's for nabbing a secret exit or something. That's another change. The number of levels that are in this game is staggering compared to the other games released up to this point. In total, there are 96 exits to find throughout the entire game. Don't worry, you won't have to get all of these in one attempt, you can save your progress at specific points, a first in the Mario series. Now, just because there are 96 exits, that doesn't mean there are 96 levels though. A bunch of levels have a hidden exit access by inserting a key into this keyhole. It's kind of weird just seeing these keyholes just kind of out there in the level. Imagine walking down the street and you see something like this, I'd be kind of freaked out. Getting these secret exits can access shortcuts in the overworld or new stages altogether. Get used to finding these, by the way. Certain areas like these ghost houses usually require finding a secret exit to get past them. Areas like the Forest of Illusion and Star Road require you to get some secret exits in order to progress as well, just a heads up. I personally don't mind being required to get secret exits. I think it makes areas like the ghost houses fun little puzzles to solve, but I totally understand if someone thought this was stupid. One other secret level I highly recommend finding as well is the top secret area. It's not really a level per se, but more of an area where you can fully power yourself up and grab Yoshi if you'd like. It can make traversing later worlds a bit easier. The power-ups actually, speaking of which, got a couple of new additions to the roster. The first and most important one of them is the Cape Feather. It's a bit strange to control, but once you get the hang of it, you can fly over a ton of levels. You can also press the Y button to spin. Spam it fast enough and you're pretty much going to have nothing touch you. Need to make a precise jump? Just hold down the jump button and Mario will slowly float to wherever you need him to go. It's a disgustingly overpowered power-up, and I love it. Sometimes it's really fun to abuse it and skip massive portions of levels, or entire levels in general. Now, I try and limit my usage of it whenever I replay this game, but sometimes I just can't help myself. I'd love to see the cape return in something other than Mario Kart, I mean, but I'm not really sure how I'd rework it to make it not overpowered. Maybe limit the flight time or something like that. I don't know, I'll leave that up to the developers who actually know what they're doing. Oh, yeah, right, the second new edition, it's the P-Balloon. This kinda blows ass. It just makes Mario float in the air for a short while, and besides the one level it's infamous for, you almost never see it in the game. I'll take the Cape Feather, thanks. Some other quick additions I'd like to mention are being able to store an extra power-up that you can use by pressing the select button, and being able to shift the camera by pressing L or R. Although I'll admit I barely ever use this also, I kinda just did it here to show off it's a feature. The music is yet another Koji Kondo masterclass. Just like the last games, much of the soundtrack has been reused and remixed in other games and spin-offs. What's interesting to note though is that Koji Kondo actually reused a lot of melodies from Super Mario Bros. 3. He just rearranged some of them and used some different instruments to create what you hear on screen. It's weird to think about, but once I noticed it, yeah, I could definitely hear the inspiration. I'd say the game's difficulty is pretty tame for most of the experience. Sure, if you go without abusing the Cape Feather, it's definitely going to be more challenging, but on a casual playthrough, I really don't think it's that bad. Although, I'm sure part of that is because I've been playing this game for years now. Most levels are pretty simple to go through, and most of the boss fights are complete jokes. The Koopalings are useless, as per usual, and new additions like Resner are only tough because the ground collapses out from under you after a short while. It might be stressful the first time you see it, but after a couple of refights, it really isn't that bad. I'd say once you get around Chocolate Island, though, is where the game starts to get sort of tough. Usually this is the point in the game where I have to really lock in and focus on certain levels. It also has some strange as hell secret exits. One has you flying under the goalpost to get it, and the other requires you to almost speedrun the level to get the secret. At least that's how I think it works. I don't know, something with the number of coins you collect might matter too, but I really don't know. The stage is a complete enigma to me. There are also two special worlds in this game that are here to challenge your platforming skills. Well, in all honesty, I don't think Star Road is too hard. The challenge in this world comes from finding the secret exits to proceed through it, though. The special world, on the other hand, oh boy, buckle up. These levels will definitely test your skills and your patience. Now, everyone knows about Tubular. Yes, the stage's name is Tubular. All the stages in this world are 90s slang terms for the word cool. Anyway, everyone knows that Tubular is the hardest stage in the game. You gotta use the stupid fucking P-balloon and navigate through an assortment of baseball throwing charging chucks and these plants that shoot projectiles. Funnily enough, though, on this playthrough, I beat it on my first try, so I'm gonna flex that. Plus, this means I can talk about the other stages in this world that drive me up a wall. Awesome is full of ice floors that have you slip sliding all over the place. Outrageous is, well, an outrageous number of bullet bills that you have to dodge, plus wigglers that can just ignore Yoshi sometimes. I don't know how that happens. And then there's Mondo. All the bitching people do about Tubular is how I feel about this stage. I don't know what it is specifically, but I always struggle here. Maybe it's the water current constantly pushing you back, but I find myself having to constantly go back to the top secret area so I'm fully armed, only to get ass blasted anyway. What is cool though is after finishing the special world, the game goes through a few interesting aesthetic changes. Summer becomes autumn, piranha plants become pumpkins, Koopa ditch their shells for Mario masks? Okay then. And bullet bills become pigeons. Sure, man, whatever. I mean, they're small changes, but at least it's some kind of reward for getting through the challenge world, and God help me if there was nothing at the end of all of that. Eventually, whether you choose to do the extra worlds or not, you make your way to Bowser Land through this admittedly pretty sick rock formation of Bowser. There isn't really anything too interesting here, besides the fact that pretty much all the levels are darkness themed. Actually, there is one thing, it's the fact that Bowser Castle has a fucking back door. Yeah, you can go through this and skip a good majority of the final level. Bowser really needs to fire his contractors because who decides to put that in their fortress? Well, regardless of if you use the back door or not, the fight with Bowser is pretty cool. You have to stomp him on the Mecha Koopas he drops and toss them back up at him. He does get increasingly more chaotic. He drops cannonballs in his second phase, and eventually he starts just trying to crush you with the clown car he's in. That propeller on the bottom has got to be made of some of the strongest materials the Mushroom Kingdom has to offer, because I have no clue how it just doesn't get crushed after Bowser constantly does this. Well, eventually Bowser goes down, Peach and Yoshi's friends are saved, and now Mario can finally vacation. He's 0-1 so far in vacations. Hopefully that record gets better in the future. If you couldn't already tell, Super Mario World is a masterpiece of a video game. It's yet another Mario game that has universally received critical and fan praise over 30 years since its initial release. Like the games before it, Mario World introduced so many staples in the series like Yoshi, just to name one easy example. Really every single one of these old Mario games are all still pretty good even to this day. There's definitely some rough aging around games like Mario 1 and Super Mario Land, but even for the faults they have, there's still enjoyment to be found in them. While from what I can tell, Super Mario Bros. 3 is still generally considered the better classic 2D Mario, there are a ton of people out there that believe this is the best Mario game in the franchise, myself included. In fact, I love it so much I consider this game to be my second favorite video game of all time. It's not my favorite though, that title belongs to a different Nintendo franchise, and you know what, I think I should probably cover them next. I think it's time for them to get their time in the sun.